the things that might have happened. The fact that she was enabled, but second, I think just to create a center, and one of the things that we've been talking about is maybe, it's time for civil society. Civil society has gotten much more enriched, I think. So we've it began with coming out on the streets and protesting, or lighting our candles, or whatever else we might have done, or hitting likes on, Twitter or whatever. If we want to do something more constructive, because, even in this small group, we have an enormous amount of expertise. And it could be a citizens' initiative where we start talking about whether we can set this up, whether we can set up one perfect model one-stop crisis center, which has the ability to help someone in the privacy of that shelter to be able to talk about the abuse they've suffered, get the assistance that they need, which is the whole range of this. The medical assistance, the examination, the legal advice, the counseling that they need, the whole range that they need before they need to go forward and take a chance to seek justice. So that's exactly what we try to talk about. But it's also, it is determined by the states. So Rashtriya is in the state.
Great, thank you very much. Ladies, just open it up for questions. If any questions from the floor.
Okay. We're talking about the mindset. This mindset is created when they are very small. They're children. Okay. Now, don't you think the first thing is the mindset of the woman of the house, who's the main mentor, should be changed? And secondly, what do you do? These children, the small children, they're very inquisitive about their bodies. You see them playing. I mean, I have seen kids so many times, they're trying to find out, okay, why are you different, why am I different? How many parents are able to address that problem? How are they going to go about it? Why shouldn't a child be made aware that, okay, this is a scientific thing, and treated as any other normal human part of the body, to change the mindset?
Thank you, that's an excellent question. And in fact, women who are abused are more likely to perpetrate abuse by their sons, or actually abusing, for example, their daughters-in-law. If you go back into the history, this is very, very common, and the mindset is, well, this is how it's supposed to be. I was shocked to see the photograph of a woman in Afghanistan who actually said, behind a burqa, that it's okay for a man to beat me because, that's how it's supposed to be. I remember watching a film which I think had Rania Tangiri in it, and she said that if a man hits me, he loves me. That's an expression of his love. So we need to change that. We need to change the mindset of women. The girl child, we need to do, society is doing a lot, but stop female feticide. The laws are far more stringent now, right? But, so it starts there. Second, educating children. I think that's critical. That's where it begins. First of all, treating boys and girls as equally as is possible, and teaching them differences respectfully. Having a very scientific way of conveying sex education. Fortunately or unfortunately, it needs to start earlier. We almost feel like kids don't have such a great childhood anymore because they grow up so quickly. But one can't help that. Starting sex education, there's a way to talk to children when they are a certain age. The stock story doesn't quite work as it shouldn't. And then sort of going ahead, treating. I think actions speak louder than words. So think about it. In how many families do we see that boys and girls are treated differently? When I was in Boston doing this study on college students and depression, I was shocked to find out that the suicide rate among girls from the Indian subcontinent was much higher than their male counterparts and then women all over the world. And that is because they were required to conform to their cultural sort of norms, dress a certain way, and at the same time behave in a certain way, and at the same time, be very westernized and, be very selective. And that made girls feel helpless, and I spoke to a number of girls who were going through that. So it has to change very, very early.
Yeah, like you see so many rape cases, movies, as we're talking about movies. You don't find so many rapes in Western movies, in Hollywood movies, but you find them in Indian movies.
Right. I think aggression is shown, action movies, right? Action thrillers are far sort of greater. I think it's an extension. Okay, sexual abuse is essentially an extension of violence in general. And I think somewhere the mindset has developed like that in terms of evolution. Because men needed to be hunters, they needed to be protectors, they needed, or rather had many mates. And somehow that mindset hasn't really quite changed. They had to express their sort of power over society when society was very patriarchal, right? So I think all that is education at a very, very large level, a mass level, and a sensitive education. I think that would go a long way. And of course, counselling as required. I mean, actually alluded to that a bit. But crisis intervention or cognitive behavior therapy, whatever different kinds of counselling, empowering women through counselling, and then treating appropriately each condition as it arises.
Anybody else?
I wanted to know whether it's necessary for the girl who has undergone a rape or molestation to report it herself, or is it possible for a relative or a friend, someone who is equally concerned, can go and report it and take the thing forward? Because in today's times, I think that becomes very crucial, because the girl may not be in that state of mind to carry it forward.
The law requires the victim to be present while reporting a case. However, because of the kind of emotional trauma the victim might have been under, generally it is advisable a relative or a friend or a confidant may accompany her. But a relative or anybody cannot just go and make a complaint or lodge a complaint on her behalf. The victim has to be present. Because you're filing ideally a FIR, which is a first-hand information report. So it has to be by the victim themselves.
Also, it can be done.
There's no time which is specific that within so many hours she has to report it. It can be done days later too.
That was my question.
How many days later? Is there a time limit? No, there is no time limit. It can be even done weeks, even months, because the government recognizes that the woman may be under so much of a stress, so much of a trauma that she's not able to come out with it without she may have amnesia, like Dr. Sullivan mentioned. So because of all these things, it can be allowed that it can be reported later. There's no time limit.
But if it's reported later, it's not a medical evidence, if they need to examine the victim or the rape.
So ideally, the rape victim should be medically examined. That is very important. In fact, there's something I missed out. The victim should be told not to rinse her mouth, comb her hair, she shouldn't bathe. She should just wait till she's examined, all the evidence is collected, and then she can. But as far as reporting is concerned, she has a choice to decide when she wants to report.
So you can technically just go in and get yourself examined without going through the queries process.
Yes, you can.
The fast track courts have started soon, but still the time distance taken between a crime and justice is far too long. So within that area, what does the state do to give protection to the girl, to make her life easier? I mean, see, we are all here in a society where we are well brought up, and we've got, friends, family, we've got enough amenities to take care of us. But what happens to a girl who comes from a lower strata of society? Maybe she's the working member and she has gotten raped. And how does she manage to earn her bread, and what does she manage to do? How will she manage to have 2 square meals a day? So what does the state do about it? Shouldn't we, as people who are more influential and who can do things in the society, take this up as a very important thing that has to be there, change in the legal structure?
Yes, Manakshi, that's really the objective, why we've all gotten together. And as Manakshi suggested, and all of them suggested, that we could look at a one-stop crisis center for women. That could be one point where they get aid of every kind. So that's essentially what we're trying to create. We're trying to make a noise, we're trying to talk about it. And we as women, I think we need to start spreading and start creating this change and empower the women that we are exposed to, our friends, our domestics, and really spread the word going forward.
Maybe this is addressed to you, Meenakshi. I know as a human rights activist, you probably would think maybe differently, I don't know. But rape is such a trauma which probably disturbs a mental state of a woman to that extent where she might decide to end her life also. So in that case, I think just 20 years of rigorous imprisonment for the person who has committed such a heinous crime is far too less. Personally, I would say we need to sign a petition where the person needs to go through equivalent trauma, make the punishment so dreadful that no one would even think of committing a crime, let alone commit the crime.
It should be castrated.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah,
Why not?
I agree, they should be castrated.
Because unless we make those changes in a country like ours, which has got such a humongous population, 10 years in jail and then you have, they're let out on good behavior or whatever. I mean, things really go really easy. And in jail, probably those people who are not even getting 2 square meals, they have a bed to sleep and they're getting their meals in the jail, they've got a roof over their head and they're living a hunky-dory life there. And this woman outside has gone through the entire trauma, whose life has been completely shattered. So I feel it's far too less.
Okay.
I mean, any kind of punishment is far too less.
To cover many of the things that you've said, rape victims, actually the law right now calls for compensation for rape victims. So there has been some step towards that. Does the legal process take too long? Yeah, judicial delays is a problem regardless of whichever issue we work on. It could be trying to get your tenant out of the house. So that is a problem. And therefore judicial, even though we have fast track courts on this one, in fact our claim is that there should be fast track courts for everything. Spend lifetimes on trying to get justice. The counseling and so on, what happens to the woman during a trial? One of the reasons, as I said, we're talking about the crisis centers, is witness protection. Because the problem is that how long will this go on? The names do come out, people begin to know who the person was, and people come under pressure. So it's not just to protect the identity that we try and keep, because that's part of it, because you wanted to have a life, but also because the likelihood of people coming under pressure, the families coming under pressure to withdraw that case is also very strong. So therefore witness protection has to be part of the judicial reform system. Now punishments. See, I started with this and I will say this again. Please do not imagine your rapist to be Ram Yadav on a bus. Really, rape happens through classes. So one, that. Two, please don't imagine, I don't know how many of you have been to jail. I really will tell you that it is the most ghastly thing possible. It's terrifying. If you're a rapist in jail, you probably get raped again. Yeah. So it isn't a tiny punishment. I know where the anger comes from when people say castrate them. When we talk about punishments, it is really because we want to reform. That's the logic of punishment. You tell your child, you tell a lie, I will not let you watch TV, because you don't want the child to lie again. You don't cut off the child's tongue. So try, and we have to as a society think in terms of reform, because that is what we want to do. Putting people away doesn't work. As a human rights activist, I will also add that I don't think hanging works. I find that Kasab's hanging has given me no joy. I find that this 21-year-old idiot who was sent here to shoot people down, how has hanging solved my problem? 166 of my people have died. My city burned. His killing has given me no joy. And it doesn't, it cannot. Because the idea is there's a thinking behind it, there's a conspiracy behind it, and unless that goes away, then this will likely to happen again. So what's the point of killing one guy? How's that solving any issue? He came to die anyway. He was a martyr.
One probably gives you closure to the victims. Whether it's in a rape case or, like you say, for Kasab, the people who have actually lost their lives. For them, it becomes a closure to the trauma. I said probably, hanging or castration gives closure for the victim, because the trauma is still alive while that person is still alive. So what I would say is, there are people definitely, but I think it should depend on the crime that happens. But for me, yes, customs, hanging happened far elongated process. They gave him a lot more biryanis to eat before they finally did it, so it didn't make any sense. So, but it had been done like a fast-track court, and actually it would have given closure to lots of victims' families who would see an end to it. Probably the bigger picture, yes, you would have to find out, but they didn't find out anything. This man wouldn't have opened his mouth of who actually sent him either. And what did the government do about it?
And it did give a satisfaction to a lot of people. The hanging did give a satisfaction to a lot of people.
Maybe
a lot
what
of
you're
Indians.
saying can happen in countries which are of a smaller size. People who are educated or their levels of emotional and mental intelligence has reached that level. We are still far behind. Really.
Yeah, can I just 1 minute? Can I have
I just want to ask one thing. Shouldn't the punishment be demonstrable and act as a deterrent?
Can we continue this on the tea area? Unfortunately, we have time restriction, but before that, just a vote of thanks quickly to Mr. Ian Banerjee. He is the Director of Global Anti-Cruises, who has put this entire thing together, and without him, it would have been possible. I would also like to thank you ladies who have been extremely generous to offer something for this cause. Diwali Shah, we've got Kaushika and Kamlesh Hengdev who've given us a ring. We've got a sari from Amy Bidamoria, and we've got a Marriott voucher. Now there will be a Salvage auction at the tea area, so if you are interested, you could take one of these items. And ladies, having said that, I thank you all very much to bearing with us with all the issues that we've had today, but I think it's been a great start. We've learned a lot from this discussion, and I hope you can take it back and spread this magic and this goodness, this good work. Thank you very much. And let's quickly proceed. I'm bringing you all
ladies, what we're going to do is, while we have a tea set up on top, we're just going to take